So last week, I went to go start my truck for the very first time with the 2UZ swap, and as I'm sure most of you know, it went terribly wrong.
Brought to you in part by Overland Outfitters.
The engine was engulfed in flames. I had to call the fire department. Luckily, the truck itself, like most of it, is savable. The engine, I don't even want to bother dealing with. I'm gonna put another engine in it. It's not bad. It's definitely savable. I had the interior gutted, so when the fire got into the interior, it had nowhere to go. It couldn't catch the seats or the carpet because they were removed. Now it's time to rebuild. And the first plan of action is taking this new shop vac I just picked up and vacuuming up all of this fire extinguisher dust. Well, what I found out is this stuff, it isn't like a powder like I was kind of thinking it was. I can't just vacuum it up. It's all kind of clumped together and just stuck everywhere. You can't really get it with a vacuum. You need to chip it away and then the vacuum can pick it up. So that's kind of inconvenient, especially with the engine in the engine bay. So I think the plan now is to just get the engine out of the way. So I'm going to remove this and then I can attack all the fire extinguisher dust on the inside panels and the firewall and stuff with like a wire wheel or something. So yeah, that's the plan. Let's remove this thing.
Now there ain't nothing to it. Go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you I'm wrong, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide wrong. Think that I'm a reconcile born, so ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know.
Since most of the fire was contained to the back of the engine over here and the side here, it appears that my power steering lines look like they'll be just fine. Might be slightly burnt here, but honestly, I don't think it's gonna make a difference. So I don't think I need to replace these yet. Alright, next thing to remove is the engine harness. And since this is fed through the firewall and it's all charred up in there, I'm just gonna cut it right here against the firewall and pull the engine back and then pull the harness through the firewall when I get in there and start gutting the interior. So yeah, let's cut this harness in half and move on.
Say I ain't keep 100, break you changing me majorly. They pay to see the way that we gon' make the beats clear to me. Talking off and when you say the least, you better believe we been through the ringer, we're through to them arenas. Menu that's the dinner or the ring of 5 fingers. And the difference that's between us, read it written in subpoenas. So in other words, you came to need us, we just reinvigorated. You little agitated, had to get them activated. No kind of active ain't it. And my occupation got me acting jaded, but I'm obligated.
And now, the last thing holding this engine in the engine bay is the motor mount. So let's get the engine hoist connected and then start removing those engine mounts.
Keeping it true to form, but they already knew that, so here we go. Yeah, they don't know their own strength. We go to length to show them all. That's why we came with no restraint. Anywhere we go against it's over with. We pull the boulder at the bottom mold and just know that we are not gonna be going quiet. Got it on autopilot, automatic, stuck louder than all your bias. We on top, give you my word, you hold them by it. Hold the rides, letting the army that's behind them remind them that I am.
I'ma show you who I am.
Alright, so it is day 2 of the rebuild. Yesterday we got the engine pulled out of the truck and that's about it. So today, I'm going to strip what I need from this engine, which includes the oil pan, the flywheel. I think I'm going to take the headers too, because I might need them on the next engine. I don't know, but I'm going to take it to be safe. I think I'll take the serpentine belt too. That looks like it's probably alright. That's probably about it, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to start off by jacking it up a bit more, draining the oil, and then removing the pan. That oil looks brand new. It's like it didn't even get an actual chance to run in the engine. And now that I'm waiting for all the oil to drain out of the engine, I might as well get to work taking the flywheel off. Now, the plan for the flywheel is, obviously it's brand new. It doesn't look brand new anymore, but I think it can be saved. I'm gonna take it to a machine shop and see if they can take it down a bit and restore it so that I can use it again. Alright, so I just dropped off the flywheel and it appears that the oil has stopped dripping into my oil bucket. So yeah, let's pull off this oil pan. And there's the oil pan. It is off. As you can see, it did get a little burnt around the edges and around the sensor here. But, I mean, overall, I think it still should be good to reuse. It wasn't leaking after the fire, so that's a good sign. There's an insane amount of bolts that come out with this oil pan. As you can see, this is my notch, and it didn't leak at all when it was full of oil, so that's good too. Do you hear that? Isn't it kind of ironic that the school directly across the street from my house is having a fire drill exactly 1 week since I lit my truck on fire? Interesting. Okay, so now it's time for the next interesting task. Trying to remove this pilot bearing, and not only that, the spacer behind it from inside this block. I think I'm going to use a bolt where the head fits in between the middle here and offset it and try to pull it out with a pair of pliers or something to get the bearing out. I'm still kind of stumped on how I'm going to get the spacer out. Alright, plan B. I'm going to use the bread trick. For those of you who don't know what the bread trick is, let me explain. The idea is to pack as much bread into the pilot bearing as possible so that it starts to push the pilot bearing out of its home. And you do this by breaking it up into little tiny pieces, pushing it in there, and then finding a bolt that matches the inner diameter of the pilot bearing. Using the bolt, you take your hammer and compress the bread into the pilot bearing. I went through 2 pieces of bread here, but as you can tell, it works great. That's it. It took a whole lot of bread, but it is a massive void to be filling in this specific block. Also, the bread trick pushed the spacer out a fair bit too. I might be able to pound more bread into this and get this thing to actually move. Oh, it felt good. Alright. And after smashing my thumb, I decided to clear out the bread and try my luck with a 2-jaw puller. And hey, it actually worked. And here they are, both the bushing and the pilot bearing. Now the pilot bearing is a little bit hurt from the fire, so I'm definitely going to replace that, but I have to reuse this little spacer thing, and honestly, it's fine. Next up, it's time to remove the exhaust manifolds. So after I removed the exhaust manifolds, I went ahead and removed the engine mounts also. Now, the last couple of things I want to rob from this engine is the serpentine belt, and I want to remove the oil filter neck. I know with the current setup I made, this neck and filter clears, and I don't know if like the new motor I find, if it's gonna have the same style neck or not, so I'm just gonna remove it. Then I know I can bolt it on and use that. Well, I think I've stripped about everything that might be useful to me off of this engine. I might take a couple more things off here and there. I'm not quite sure yet. As I said, I still am not sure what motor I'm actually replacing this with, but it'll definitely be a UZ. Anyways, guys, that about wraps up this week's episode of Dirt Garage. I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm trying a bit of a different style here with the videos. I'm kind of trying to vlog a little bit more and show more of the specific details on what I'm doing. So if you guys like that, please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, if you like the stuff, please remember to give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
I'ma make a
Peace.
couple stacks, do exactly what I want to. Mix a couple tracks, get a lady that I'm drawn to. Turn up to the max, get it faded till I'm gone, dude. I do what I want, couldn't stop me if you wanted to. I just work hard, yeah, harder than the rest. Some people say I'm lucky, others say